Supermarket or bottle shop? Which one is actually worth it? Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today I'm taking a look at two beers that just so happen to give us a very interesting head-to-head test. When buying beer from either a supermarket or a craft beer bottle shop, which one is actually the one you want to be going for? Of course, this isn't actually a straightforward question. It will depend on lots of variables such as what beer you want to buy, what style, which brands you prefer, who's got what price at what time, and all the rest of it. But interestingly, you don't all that often get a chance to put two very similar beers head to head from both the supermarket or the bottle shop, of course with the exception of some bigger brands, and in those cases it's almost always the case that the bottle shop is more expensive and therefore, well, it's not really worth looking at. However, these two beers do give us an interesting comparison. It just so happened that on the day after I purchased this can, the Yonder Black Forest Gateau Pastry Stout from my local bottle shop, that I found out about this from Northern Monk, their Black Forest Gateau Stout, which is now available in Sainsbury's. And well, I thought it'd be worth putting them head to head to find out, you know, which one is really worth it, what are the price differences, and how, yeah, just which one really is better. Now then, a little bit of information about both of these before we start. The kind of elephant in the room here isn't actually about price, as you might imagine. We'll touch on that in a minute. The elephant really is in ABV. The Yonder beer comes in at a flat 5%, I believe it is. Yeah, it certainly is. And the Northern Monk, well, that's heavy hitting at 8%. So there is a big difference there. But as a result, there isn't actually a huge difference in the price. First off, with the supermarket beer then, price-wise, this retails at a flat £4 a can. That is in Sainsbury's and on the Northern Monk website, and that's pretty respectable, especially for an 8% beer. That said though, they do exist on a 4 for 3 offer, so if you were willing to buy more of them, you could theoretically buy it for £3 a can. On the flip side then, the Yonder beer, actually the cheapest I found it was directly from Yonder. That is at £4.10, I think it is. I'll put the variables on screen, maybe £4.15, and it goes all the way up to kind of £5-6 in some different bottle shops. So at the extremes, you could say one's twice the price of the other if you bought lots of these and went to the worst possible scenario for this one. But ultimately, they are both around £4 a can at their just regular single can purchase price, which, well, really isn't all that bad at all. So first off, I'm going to crack into the Yonder because it is the lower ABV beer. I'm going to set the Northern Monk off to the side here. Let's take a quick look at this can. It looks very nice indeed. Typical Yonder styling. Pastry stout at 5%, as you can see there. There is some info on the back which we'll get into a little bit later. But otherwise, you know what? It's just a nice looking can, and they've opted with a massive pair of cherries on the front. The smell, the aroma filling the room now is absolutely fantastic. In the glass then, nice, solid, dark, very dark beer, thick kind of crema, almost toffee coloured head on it. If I hold it up, it is a jet black beer, no light seeping through there whatsoever, but the aroma is just getting me. I've got to get into this. It's big, it's sweet, fruity, bit of caramel, even custardy, big vanilla, I think custardy vibes on this. Not sure you normally have Black Forest Gateau with custard, but if you did, it's probably what it kind of smells like, and it is appetising, has to be said. I'll be honest, it is just big, sweet fruits, not a lot of the actual core beer coming through, although as I said that, there is just the tiniest bit of roasty malt coming through, but it's still very sweet, almost marshmallowy in places, and yeah, I mean, it smells terrific. Not all that much like a stout, if I'm honest. It's very fruit forward, very sweet, but it smells good. It smells really good. Very nice. Right then, let's give it a go. Cheers. Oh wow. Was a little bit nervous then. I thought, a bit of a sweet mess, if I'm honest. My initial reaction was, oh, not sure. And then there's this spike, this absolute, almost like fresh berry sourness that rips through the middle of it. Most stouts, especially sweet stouts, try and balance it off with those big, rich, roasty, bitter notes. This, though, isn't. This is trying to balance it off with some sour, and I mean, it works, but I have to say, the body's actually a little bit thin. Condition in the glass now, not looking great, especially considering that last video we did was the Cocoa Wonderland from Thornbridge Supermarket Beer, 8% rather than this 5. Kept its conditioning absolutely beautifully. But that said, to be fair to it, the mouthfeel isn't bad. Suspect it's probably a lactose beer, especially given it's a pastry stout. That's normally what that means. And it's okay. I'll be honest, I had huge hopes for this when I picked it up. I thought this is going to be scintillating. Every other beer I've had from Yonder in the past has been really quite something special. I'm not going to say that this is bad, because it's certainly not. It's just maybe a bit too fruity, a bit too sweet, and maybe lacking in some of those kind of core metrics that I'm looking for when analysing a beer, because the bit that's good about it is all that flavouring, and what's not so good about it is the actual beer, which is a bit of a shame. And I'll be honest, it's what I thought I was going to end up saying about the Northern Monk. Might still be the case, but initial impression is really, I mean, to be fair to them, it is exactly what it says on the tin. It does taste like a Black Forest Gateau in a glass, but if you're just after that flavour, then big thumbs up. If you're actually wanting the beery element of it along with those flavours, yeah, not so great. But before we get carried away with that one, let us get into the Northern Monk Black Forest Gateau Stout at 8%. Nice looking can again. It's I don't know which one I prefer really. It's all right. It's it was a bit dulled out actually on supermarket shelves compared to some others. I think it's because everything's kind of in that red and purple, burgundy, black and white. It didn't really pop for some reason. It looks bright enough here right now on camera, but yeah, compared to everything else in the shop, didn't really stand out. This is running a lot lighter, a lot thinner. It looks like cola pouring out, I'm honest. In the glass, it doesn't look too dissimilar, really, from the Yonder when it was first poured. The head is a little bit lighter, perhaps, a little bit more aerated, a bit less pillowy. If I hold it up to the light, in fairness, despite it looking like a soft drink on the pour, can I see anything? Maybe a slight haze, but I'm not convinced. It's pretty much a jet black beer again, at least in this glass. But yeah, it looks okay. It looks fine. Oh, this is interesting. Very different approach, and almost the aroma on this is kind of what I was expecting from the Yonder, because Yonder went out with the cherries on the top and that sort of thing. This is distinctly cherry forward, much less of a full mixed fruit bag, which, to be honest, the full mixed fruit bag is what you want from a Black Forest Gateau experience, I guess. But the aroma is muted compared to the Yonder. I say very cherry forward, and it's a bit too cherry-like. It's like it's almost kind of, you know, synthetic cherry sweets, that kind of thing. It doesn't smell off-putting though. It smells fine. A little bit one-dimensional, and yeah, just ultimately okay, acceptable. Let's give it a go. Cheers. Right. Okay. I'll be honest. When I thought about doing this video, I thought my process was, well, we've got two things that are similar to each other, but they come from different places. They are effectively different ends of the market, although the price is very similar, as in one is generally considered a bit more boutique and luxury because you're paying more for a lower ABV and all that stuff. Meanwhile, supermarket beer, yes, it's from a reputable brewer, but ultimately supermarket beer is always going to be cut short somewhere, most of the time anyway. There are, of course, exceptions. And I was expecting to be able to say, you know what, this is just leaps and bounds ahead of the Northern Monk, and to be honest, I thought that would kind of be it. And the other reason for me doing this video really is that I quite like to push kind of lesser known breweries, small brewers, stuff you can't get in the supermarket for people to watch. But unfortunately, because people don't know what to search for to get that, it means that, well, no one ends up seeing it, which makes it quite difficult. So I thought, let's bring in a well-known name against a lesser known name, and yeah, hopefully shine a light on something truly brilliant. My reaction to that Yonder, of course, was, well, not all that brilliant. I mean, perfectly nice, but in my personal preference kind of sphere, not everything I was looking for. Which, I'll be honest, made me a little bit worried that the point wasn't really going to come across, and I was going to say they're both kind of the same, so you may as well get whichever one is cheapest, which obviously leans over to Northern Monk. However, this Northern Monk beer is vile. Like, that's poor. Like, there's really... Where do I even start with this? So, the aroma, as I said, was a little bit kind of synthetic-y on that very cherry aroma. The taste, though, is all the same. This may as well be 8% cherry vodka. Like, it's just... I don't know what other ingredients have gone into this, but they're not doing anything. It's all just big, impactful... I'm not going to keep saying the word artificial because it might be a concentrated puree or something of that description, but it feels over the top, it feels intense, and as a result, it delivers a slightly, well, unnatural experience, if you like. One thing I can now say about the Yonder beer, going back to it having tried that Northern Monk beer, is whilst the beer element itself might not be quite what I'm looking for, the balance of flavour, the breadth of variety, all of the kind of hallmarks that make just an appeasing flavour in the mouth and on the palate, well, Yonder has that in spades, and Northern Monk, well, we need a spade just to bury that now, because that is frankly pretty awful. And I don't like saying bad things about beers in general, because I'm trying to, you know, shine a light on things that are good and interesting you should go and try. And, well, whilst the Yonder may not be for me, actually I think a lot of people who are interested in beer but don't necessarily get on with some of the bigger, harsher flavours and need something a little bit more, you know, sweetened up. Actually, I think the Yonder is a fantastic shout for that. But that Northern Monk one, it doesn't matter if it's £2 in the supermarket, it's dross. So, yeah, I feel like this video actually is getting wrapped up a little bit shorter than it would have otherwise. What I'm going to do, though, is set apart this Northern Monk beer, come back to the Yonder and just give you a quick top to bottom taste test so you can understand what the whole breadth of this is, given that this is the one you actually want to be buying. So initially, right on the tip of the tongue, sweet berry notes, a bit of vanilla. It actually feels like it's leaning a little bit strawberry, which I'm not sure is a Black Forest Gateau ingredient, but anyway, it's that way inclined. It's a little thing, a bit strawberries and cream with a slightly dark edge, maybe for some black cherries or black currants or something like that. Over the mid tongue, darker fruits come in, more dark cherries, black currants, blackberries, those sorts of things. And interestingly, when you hold it there, and maybe the beer's opened up a bit, maybe it's changed, I'm not getting quite the same kind of harsh, sour jolt that I was at the beginning on my initial reaction. There is a little bit of roastiness there from the malt, which is a welcome thing. It's what I felt like I was missing initially. There is a bit of it in there, don't get me wrong, it is still pretty low down, pretty mild, and I would like a bit more of it, but at least it exists. And then onto the back of the tongue, the fruit starts to sweeten off again, becomes much more vanilla-y, custardy and that sort of thing. It's kind of an accompaniment to the fruit. The sour bit that I mentioned before, it's kind of there, it kind of tickles around the back of the tongue. I don't know whether it's just because I've been going back and forth to beers and my tongue is now acclimatised to it, but it's certainly less aggressive than it was initially. There's a little bit of it there. There's a little bit of a like a tangy sensation right at the back there. And then on the aftertaste, that pastry note comes in, the lactose, the milky bit. It is slightly still overly dominated by a lot of that sweet fruit flavour, but at least that sweet fruit flavour is actually very nice in this instance. So I'd like a bit more of that pastryness to show through a bit of the actual core beer, as I said, but ultimately it's a very enjoyable drink, just maybe not the most dynamic. However, in comparison to that Northern Monk one, well, it's an absolute diamond really, because yeah, there's no contest. Just before we wrap this up then, I'm going to take a quick look at both of the cans. So on the Yonder can, it says layer upon layer of dark chocolate cake, vanilla cream, so custard, vanilla cream, that is absolutely there. Dark chocolate. So a little bit of bitterness mid-palate. You could attribute that to something like dark chocolate, but ultimately it's not very chocolatey for me. It's just being absolutely killed off by the sweeter fruit flavours, but I guess there's an attempt in there somewhere, and it kind of makes sense. And cherries are infused into this delightfully drinkable pastry-inspired milk stout, another delectable liquid dessert in a can from the creative minds of Yonder. So it is a milk stout. I mean, yes, pretty much it is there. I think, look, Yonder are a smaller brewer, and I wouldn't be surprised if some cans of this taste much more stouty and that pastry bit comes through a lot more, and then some others are just a fruit fest like this one is. I suspect maybe there's a bit of inconsistency, possibly, but in any event, it's still a very nice beer. On to the less nice beer, the Northern Monk one on the front, Northern Monk Black Forest Gateau Stout, 8%. It's meant to taste like vanilla, cherry, and chocolate. Okay. I mean, at least they're intentional with the cherries, but I'm not getting anything else. I'm really not. Oh, it's bad. Oh, imagine you ate a lot of Black Forest Gateau and then it... Yeah, that right there. Black Forest Gateau and stomach acid is the best descriptor I can give you of that one. There's nothing else really of note on the can. A proper Black Forest Gateau is devilishly rich and elegantly boozy. Dark chocolate and sweet cherry flavours combined in a lavishly decadent stout. Oh, ingredients: water, barley, wheat, oats, lactose. Sorry, this has got barley, wheat, oats, and lactose in it, and it's still that thin? Jeez. There's cacao powder, hops, vanilla, natural flavours. That's a worrying sign. And yeast. Look. If you really, really, really like cherry, it's probably alright. But... oh, that's a poor beer in my book. I'm really not digging that at all, which is a shame, but it is what it is. And that really is all I have to say about them. So, despite my initial hesitations, if you're going for a Black Forest Stout, get to your local bottle shop, because that one is leaps and bounds ahead of the supermarket offering, even if it is 3% more on the ABV, but that's not what really matters when it tastes quite that bad. And that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you'll be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.